Philippines' most dangerous volcano is erupting right now. And this is not the slow, glowing lava you've seen in travel photos. This is Mayon, a perfect cone rising out of the Philippine jungle that has buried entire towns, killed thousands, and is doing it again. Right now, rivers of lava are racing down its slopes. The ground beneath it is shaking, and a burning avalanche of superheated gas, ash, and rock is forming near the summit, one that moves faster than a car, faster than a helicopter can respond, and faster than any human being can run. Nearly 3,000 people have already been forced to leave everything behind. 52 villages are buried under ash. And here is the part that nobody is saying loudly enough. This eruption can look completely beautiful while it is building towards something catastrophic. So the real question is this: is what we are watching right now a volcano venting pressure, or is Mayon just getting started? Mayon is not just a volcano. It is arguably the most visually striking geological feature on the planet. From a distance, it looks almost fake, a steep, perfectly symmetrical cone rising nearly 8,000 feet out of the Philippine landscape, like someone drew a volcano by hand and forgot to make it look natural. People travel from across the world just to photograph it. It has been painted, printed on postcards, and featured in tourism campaigns for decades. And that beauty is exactly what makes it so deceptive. Mayon sits in Albay province on the island of Luzon in the Philippines. It is surrounded by towns, rice paddies, and farming communities that have existed in its shadow for centuries. On a clear morning, with clouds wrapping around its upper slopes, it looks like something out of a dream. But here is what nobody tells you when they show you those photographs. That perfect shape is not a coincidence. It is a warning. Mayon is a stratovolcano. Not all volcanoes are built the same way, and the differences matter enormously. A stratovolcano is constructed in layers: lava, then ash, then broken rock, then more lava, then more ash, stacked on top of each other over thousands and thousands of years. Layer after layer, eruption after eruption, building upward and steepening with every cycle. That layered construction is what gives Mayon its flawless cone shape. And that same construction is what makes it capable of doing something far more dangerous than a slow lava flow. Stratovolcanoes do not just ooze, they explode, they collapse, they generate pyroclastic flows, and we will get to exactly what that means in a moment, because it is the most terrifying thing this volcano can produce. They send ash clouds miles into the sky. They trigger avalanches of rock and fire that can erase everything in their path in under a minute. The steep walls of the cone are not solid, stable bedrock. They are compressed layers of volcanic material, and when pressure builds from below, those walls do not hold forever. This is not some forgotten volcano that stirs once every few thousand years and goes quiet again. Mayon has erupted more than 50 times since records began in the early 1600s. 50 recorded eruptions. In a country that already sits on one of the most volcanically active regions on Earth, Mayon stands above all of them. The most active, the most watched, and right now, the most dangerous. But here's what nobody told you about that perfect shape. The more symmetrical the cone, the more violently it was built. There is a church in the Philippines that has not had a roof since 1814. Its bell tower still stands, half buried in hardened volcanic rock, frozen in place like a photograph of the moment everything went wrong. The town around it is gone. The people inside it are gone. And the volcano that did it is still there, still active, still building pressure on the same slopes where people are farming today. The Cagsava ruins are what remain of a town that Mayon swallowed whole. In February of 1814, the volcano produced one of the most catastrophic eruptions in Philippine history. Lava flows and volcanic mud flows, called lahars, swept through the surrounding communities with a speed and force that left almost no time to react. Around 1,000 people were killed. An entire settlement was buried under ash and debris so deep that only the top of the church bell tower remained visible above the surface. Today, that tower is a tourist landmark. Visitors take photos in front of it with Mayon rising perfectly in the background. It is stunning. It is also a monument to what this volcano is capable of. But 1814 was not an isolated moment, not a fluke, not a once-in-a-millennium event. Mayon has been erupting repeatedly and consistently since the earliest written records in the Philippines began. More than 50 eruptions documented across 4 centuries. That averages out to a major eruptive event roughly every 8 years. Some were smaller. Some were catastrophic. All of them were dangerous. In 1993, pyroclastic flows killed 77 people who had ventured too close to the slopes. In 2006, typhoon-driven lahars after an eruption buried entire villages under volcanic mud, killing more than 1,000 people, not from lava, but from the slow, suffocating aftermath. In 2018, another major eruption forced more than 80,000 residents to evacuate. 80,000 people, packing what they could carry and leaving in the middle of the night because a mountain gave them no choice. And here is the detail that should stop you cold. Every single one of those eruptions happened in the same province, the same slopes, the same communities. Generation after generation, the people of Albay rebuilt, returned, and planted crops in the same volcanic soil that had buried their ancestors. Not because they were reckless, because that soil is extraordinarily fertile, because that land is all they have, because the volcano gives life between the moments it takes it away. That tension between survival and danger, between home and catastrophe, is exactly what makes what is happening right now so much more than a geological event. Right now, as you are watching this, Mayon is not dormant. It is not resting. It is not showing early warning signs that scientists are monitoring cautiously from a safe distance. It is actively erupting. Lava is flowing down its slopes. The ground beneath it is shaking. And the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, the government agency responsible for monitoring every volcano in the country, has placed Mayon under Alert Level 3. That number matters. Alert. Level 3 does not mean a minor tremor or a puff of steam from the summit. It means magma is directly involved. It means molten rock has risen close enough to the crater that the volcano is actively producing lava and lava-related hazards. It means the system is awake, pressurized, and moving. The alert scale runs from 0 to 5. Level 4 means a hazardous explosive eruption is considered imminent. Mayon is 1 level below that. 1 level. Lava has been confirmed flowing down 3 of Mayon's major gullies, the Basud Gully, the Bonga Gully, and the Misi Gully. These are not small trickles. The lava has traveled approximately 3.8 kilometers down the Basud Gully. That is nearly 2.5 miles of molten rock carving through the mountain. Down the Bonga Gully, it has reached 3.2 kilometers. Down the Misi Gully, 1.6 kilometers. And these channels matter enormously, because on a volcano like Mayon, the danger does not spread out evenly in every direction. It follows the grooves. It accelerates through the cuts. The gullies act like slides, funneling lava, heat, and debris straight down toward the communities below. Beyond the lava flows, observers have recorded strombolian activity near the summit, short bursts of glowing lava fragments thrown upward from the crater. A brief lava fountain has been reported. Crater glow has been visible at night, confirming that hot magmatic material is sitting close to the surface. The volcano is not building quietly in secret. It is showing its hand. Nearly 3,000 residents have already been evacuated from the 6-kilometer danger zone surrounding the volcano. Hundreds more left voluntarily from areas just outside the official boundary. An ashfall has now been reported across 52 villages in Albay, coating rooftops, roads, crops, and water sources in a layer of fine volcanic debris that stretches far beyond the lava's reach. This is what Alert Level 3 looks like from the ground. Not a map on a scientist's screen. Families leaving, ash falling, lava moving. But here's what nobody told you about those flowing lava channels. The lava itself is not the most dangerous thing coming down that mountain. Picture the largest dam you have ever seen. Billions of gallons of water held back by a wall of concrete and steel. Now picture that wall cracking. Not slowly, instantly. Everything behind it, all that weight, all that pressure, all that force, releases in a single violent second and races downhill at speeds that make escape completely impossible. That is the closest comparison scientists have found for what Mayon is capable of producing right now. Not lava. Something far worse. It is called a pyroclastic density current, and it is, without debate, one of the deadliest natural phenomena on the surface of this planet. Not a lava flow, not an ash cloud. Something else entirely. A ground-hugging avalanche of superheated gas, volcanic ash, and fragments of molten rock that explodes down the slope of a volcano at speeds that can exceed 100 miles per hour. Faster than a car on a highway. Faster than a helicopter at low altitude. Faster than any living thing can run, drive, or react. Here is how it forms on a volcano like Mayon. Lava piles up near the summit as the eruption continues. The walls of the cone are not solid rock. They are compressed layers of volcanic material built up over centuries, and they are steep. When enough lava accumulates, or when the pressure from below shifts suddenly, sections of that material become unstable. They collapse. Hot lava fragments, ash, and volcanic rock break away from the cone and begin racing downhill through those same gullies already carved into Mayon's slopes. As that material accelerates, it mixes with superheated gas. It stops being a rockfall. It becomes a current. A burning, suffocating, crushing wave of destruction, moving faster than the human brain can process danger. It does not announce itself. It does not slow down. It burns everything it touches, buries everything it reaches, and suffocates anything caught in its path before a single warning can be issued. The people of Kagawa in 1814 never outran it. The 77 people killed in 1993 never outran it. Nobody has ever outrun a pyroclastic density current on foot. This is exactly why the 6-kilometer exclusion zone around Mayon is not a suggestion, not a precaution on paper, not a guideline for people to weigh against the inconvenience of leaving their homes. It is the minimum distance at which survival becomes possible. Inside that zone, if the lava front collapses right now, the outcome is not injury. It is not rescue. It is not recovery. If that level of threat just stopped you cold, every subscriber on this channel is automatically entered in our monthly branded hoodie giveaway. Details are in the description. But here's what nobody told you about the danger that continues long after the lava stops. When people hear the word ashfall, most picture something soft, something manageable. A light gray dusting on windshields and rooftops, the kind of thing you brush off with your sleeve and move on. That image is wrong. Completely, dangerously wrong. And in the 52 villages currently buried under Mayon's ash, the difference between that assumption and reality is a matter of life and death. Volcanic ash is not ash. In any sense you have experienced before, it is not the soft, weightless powder left behind by a campfire. It is tiny, jagged fragments of pulverized rock and glass. Microscopic shards with sharp edges that slice through lung tissue with every breath. You cannot see the damage happening. You cannot feel it immediately. But breathe enough volcanic ash without protection, and the inflammation, the scarring, the respiratory destruction accumulates faster than most people realize. Children and the elderly are especially vulnerable, and right now, 52 villages in Albay are breathing it. The damage does not stop at the lungs. Volcanic ash contaminates open water supplies, making entire communities dependent on emergency distribution. It coats crops and kills harvests that families were counting on to survive the year. It clogs engines, destroys machinery, and makes roads dangerously slippery. And when rainfall arrives, which in the Philippines is not a question of if, but when, wet ash becomes something else entirely. It becomes weight, heavy, compacting, structural weight that has collapsed rooftops across volcanic disaster zones throughout history. But the rain does not just make the ash heavier. It transforms everything sitting loose on Mayon slopes into something with its own name and its own death toll. A lahar, a volcanic mud flow that does not need an active eruption to form. All it needs is rain falling on fresh ash and loose volcanic debris, and the Philippines sits directly in the path of some of the most powerful typhoons on Earth. When a lahar forms, it behaves like fast-moving concrete. It pours down river channels and gullies with a force that demolishes buildings, buries roads, and fills valleys in hours. And critical, lahars can strike days, weeks, even months after the eruption itself has quieted. The lava goes cold, the cameras leave, the world stops watching. And then the rain comes, and the mountain sends one final wave through communities that thought the danger had passed. PHIVOLCS currently lists lahars during heavy rainfall as an active threat at Mayon. Not a future concern, a present one. But here's what nobody told you about why this volcano never stops producing these threats in the first place. Mayon is not an accident of geography. It is not a random mountain that happened to become volcanic through some geological coincidence. It is the product of one of the most powerful and relentless tectonic processes on the surface of this planet. And understanding why Mayon exists, why it has erupted more than 50 times, why it will never truly go quiet, requires zooming out from Albay province and looking at the larger machine that built it. The Philippines sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. That name gets used so frequently in disaster coverage that it has almost lost its meaning. So here is what it actually describes. The Ring of Fire is a 40,000-kilometer belt encircling the Pacific Ocean, where the vast majority of the world's earthquakes and volcanic eruptions occur. It is not a metaphor. It is the boundary zone where massive tectonic plates, slabs of the Earth's crust spanning thousands of miles, are constantly grinding against each other, diving beneath each other, and tearing apart from each other in geological slow motion. Beneath the Philippines specifically, oceanic crust is being forced downward into the Earth's mantle through a process called subduction. As that crust sinks deeper, the intense heat and pressure cause it to release water and other materials into the surrounding mantle rock. That changes the melting point of the rock. It begins to liquefy. It becomes magma. And that magma, lighter than the solid rock surrounding it, begins rising upward through cracks and weak zones in the crust above. When it finds a pathway to the surface, it builds a volcano. Not randomly. Directly above the subduction zone. Exactly where Mayon stands. This means Mayon is not misbehaving. It is functioning precisely as the geology beneath it demands. The tectonic machine that built it is still running. The subduction is still happening. The magma is still generating. The volcano will continue to receive fresh material from depth for as long as those plates keep moving, which is to say, for longer than human civilization has existed, and longer than it will last. So when people ask whether a bigger eruption is coming, the honest scientific answer is this: nobody knows, not with certainty. Alert Level 3 confirms that magma is active and close to the surface. PHIVOLCS has not raised the alarm to Level 4, which would signal that a hazardous explosive eruption is considered imminent. But Level 3 is not safe. It has never been safe. The system is pressurized, the lava is moving, and the volcano has fooled observers before, looking manageable right until the moment it was not. But here's what nobody told you about the people who never left. There is a detail about Mayon's danger zone that never makes it into the international headlines. The 6-kilometer exclusion zone that authorities enforce during every eruption. The boundary that scientists and emergency officials describe as the minimum distance for survival is not empty between eruptions. It is farmed. It is lived in. It is home. And the people who return to it every time the alert level drops are not ignoring the danger out of ignorance. They are making an impossible calculation that outsiders rarely understand. The soil on Mayon's slopes is some of the most fertile agricultural land in the Philippines. Centuries of volcanic ash and mineral-rich debris have built a growing environment so productive that farmers can harvest crops multiple times a year. Rice, vegetables, fruit, the kind of yields that feed families, sustain communities, and represent the only viable livelihood for thousands of people who have no realistic alternative. The volcano that buries them also feeds them. That is not a paradox. That is the economics of survival in Albay province. So when the evacuation order comes, and it has come again and again throughout living memory, the people who leave are not closing a chapter. They are pausing one. They carry what they can. They move to relatives, to shelters, to gymnasiums and community centers that were never designed for long-term habitation. They wait. They watch the alert level. And when the number drops, many of them go back. Not because the volcano is safe, because staying away permanently means losing everything the volcano gave them in the first place. Nearly 3,000 residents have been evacuated during the current unrest. Hundreds more left voluntarily. But the weight of that departure is not captured in the official numbers. It is the farmer who does not know if his crops survived the ashfall. It is the family that left livestock behind because the evacuation happened too fast. It is the grandmother who has watched this evacuation happen 3 times in her lifetime and is packing the same bag she packed in 2018, in 2009, in 2000. And underneath all of it sits the shadow of 1,814. The buried town. The bell tower still visible above the debris. The 1,000 people who did not make it out. That history is not abstract in Albay. It is physical. You can drive to it. You can stand in front of it. You can look up at the same perfect cone rising above the ruins and understand, in a way no textbook can fully explain, exactly what is at stake every single time that mountain wakes up. Mayon does not give warnings forever. At some point, it simply acts. Mayon is not a story with an ending. It is a story with intervals. The lava may slow. The alert level may drop. The evacuated families may return to their farms and find their crops still standing under a thin layer of ash. And the international coverage will move on to the next disaster, the next crisis, the next breaking headline. But the volcano will still be there. The magma chamber beneath it will still be filling. The tectonic plates driving the entire system will still be grinding forward at the same relentless pace they have maintained for millions of years. And then the rain will come. It always does in the Philippines. And somewhere on Mayon's ash-covered slopes, loose volcanic debris will mix with water and begin moving downhill through the same gullies that carried the lava. Quietly at first, then faster, then unstoppable. The danger at Mayon does not end when the eruption slows. It evolves. It finds new forms. It waits for the moment the world stops paying attention. The question is not whether Mayon will erupt again with greater force. It will. The only honest question is when, and whether the communities in its shadow will have enough warning, enough resources, and enough support to survive it when it does. If this story reminded you that catastrophe rarely announces itself twice, grab your free disaster preparedness toolkit, linked in the description below. The bell tower of Cagsava has been standing in volcanic rock for over 200 years. It is still waiting for the next one.